I'm David Nunez, a mechanical design engineer here at SOR Controls Group, and today I'll be talking about how to change the spare parts on the 1450 series control valve. This is important for customers that would like to perform their own routine maintenance as well as repair damaged units, and for distribution representatives that would like to expand their inventory offering by being able to offer many different configurations without having to hold all of them in inventory. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 different operations: replacing the diaphragm, replacing the packing, and replacing the trim. What we're going to do first is I'm going to show you how to disassemble and reassemble the diaphragm and the upper housing, and then we will go ahead and disassemble the upper housing while we remove the trim and replace the packing. So we will remove this and do the packing and trim at the same time as one operation. The first thing that we want to do before we start any of these operations is always to remember to disconnect and remove this completely from any process pressure, and to also loosen this set nut right here, and also loosen the adjusting screw so that there is no preload on the stem and everything will be safe to work on. For this demonstration, these are already only hand tight so that I can do it here, but you can see that this should be completely loose, just like this. The next step to replace the actuator will be to remove the upper housing. To do this, we need to remove all the bolts and the nuts around the upper housing in order to remove it. For the purposes of this demonstration, I have these just hand tight so that I can easily remove them. You'll just want to use a wrench to loosen each of these and then remove them, just like I'm doing here. And now with all of those removed, the housing can be removed and the string can be removed. At this point, you'll be able to see the actuator and be able to inspect it for any damage, any tears, any rips, any broken pieces. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're just going to replace it. First thing you'll need to do is take a wrench and put it under the diaphragm plate here and sort of push up, pry up. This pulls the stem out of the cage and will give us a little more room to work. There's 2 lock nuts on the top and bottom of this plate. You want to use a wrench, put it on the bottom side here, and then use another wrench to loosen this. Now, the nut, the lock nut, the washer, diaphragm plate, and finally, the actuator can be removed. At this point, we're ready to replace it and to reassemble the actuator. Next, we're going to be replacing the actuator and reassembling the valve here. Note, in the actuator repair kit, we're going to have 2 set lock nuts. We're going to have 2 O-rings. These O-rings are actually positioned down here in the packing plug. You can remove this lower housing and replace these if these are leaking. It'll come in this repair kit. But for most customers, this won't be necessary. And in this video, we're not actually going to do this. We're just going to replace the actuator and reassemble it. So, for the purposes of this video, you won't see me use these. So, next, we want to position this bottom lock nut about half an inch of thread should be showing beneath it. Ideally, what we want to do is we want to position the actuator so that when the valve is at about 50% movement from all the way at the top to all the way at the bottom, that the actuator is flat. And we'll be able to see this, and I'll show you how to adjust that in a minute. So first, bottom lock nut, our washer, our new actuator, And so you can see there the stem actually pushed back down into the cage. The diaphragm plate, the washer, the lock nut, then our other set nut. Push it down hand tight. And we can see that this is actually depressed underneath here. Let's take a wrench and push up. You can see the stem come back up. And this is about 50% above and below. So if we push it back down, it's below. Push it back up, it's above. So this is about right. This would be okay to tighten back down. Okay. Now that the diaphragm is tight, we want to realign these holes. Push it back down. Remember to put your spring back in here. Just like that. And then realign our upper housing. It won't change the functionality, but we always try to position the indicator above the process connection. So here, makes the nameplate stick out to one side. It looks nice. This is how it should come from the factory. Next, replace our bolts and our nuts. Okay, now that all of these bolts and nuts are hand tight, we want to proceed by tightening each one of these in a crisscross pattern to 20 foot-pounds. Just like you would tighten the lug nuts on your car, you just want to proceed in a crisscross pattern, tightening one, going to the other side, and tightening sort of in a star. And then after this, the actuator should be repaired and you're ready to go back into service. Next, we're going to move on to show how to replace the trim and how to replace the packing. For this demonstration, we're going to do this at the same time. If you want to replace the packing without replacing the trim, you'll need to remove the upper housing and disconnect the stem from the diaphragm in order to pull the stem all the way through the packing plug. Because we've already done the actuator, we're going to leave that attached and we're going to pull the stem through the packing without the trim on it, okay? So in order to start this process, we're going to remove the hammer nut here at the bottom. You may need to use a hammer, but for this purposes, I've just got it hand tight. And now we have the cage in here, as well as the plug right here. In order to remove the cage, it can actually seize in here pretty good after a unit has been in the field for quite some time. And so it may require that you fashion some type of hook. This is a hook that we've actually fashioned for production use that we use, but I've already loosened this, so it's not going to require a lot of elbow grease to get it out, but I will show you how we do it. We sort of get this in here, get it into those side holes, and then you should just be able to pull right out, just like that. Next, we're going to remove the plug. In order to do this, we need to remove the 1/8 inch drift pin that holds the plug to the stem. So we're going to use our little punch here, and a hammer. And we are going to position it right on that pin. So it goes to the other side, just like that. And then the plug should unscrew from the stem. Just like that. And at this point, we have now removed our cage and our plug, and we are ready to reinstall our new trim kit. Now that we've removed the trim, I need to remove the upper housing in order to remove the stem. So first I'm going to take off these loose parts. We have a washer, a spring, and after we tip this up, we have another washer, and some of the packing may fall out, but we can go ahead and set that aside. And now I'm just going to quickly remove the housing, and this should be available in the earlier part of the video. And here we can remove the stem all the way from the assembly, just like this. All right, and at this point, the packing has been disassembled and we are ready for reassembly. All right, now that we're ready for reassembly of the packing, I just want to talk about the components or the parts that will come with the packing rebuild kit. So we've got the spring, we've got two washers, we've got the packing, we've got a brass ring, and then we also have some O-rings. One O-ring will be here at the bottom of the packing plug. That is this O-ring. Second O-ring is similar to the other O-ring in the actuator repair kit. It goes on the top of the packing plug between the lower diaphragm housing and the packing plug. Similarly, there's also another O-ring right inside this, underneath this crush washer. Most times, these washers don't necessarily need to be replaced, but you do need to inspect that you're not getting leaks and that those O-rings are not damaged. In case that they are damaged, they are in the repair kits, and to repair them, all you need to do is remove this lower diaphragm housing and then to replace those O-rings. For this demonstration, we're not going to do that. We're going to move on to replacing the packing. When reassembling the packing, it's important to know how it goes together. So getting the order is important. So the first thing that'll go in is this brass ring that will first go inside. And then next, this part of the packing that is flat on one side and then conical shape on the other side. This will go next, just like this. And then subsequently, each packing piece cone face down into the groove below it and continue until each piece is stacked on each other. And then lastly, it should be cone face down and then flat side to you. And this is how the packing should be reassembled. Now that we're ready to reassemble the packing plug, first we're going to start by inserting the brass piece in here. Next, here it is. It should be flat side down, conical side shape up. Then we proceed by putting in conical side down, then groove side up. Make sure to press it down firmly. Just like so. And then finally, cone side down, flat side up will be the last piece. Just like that. And then, washer, spring, last washer. Now we're ready to insert our stem back through the packing plug and our new packing. When inserting the stem, be careful not to damage any of the O-rings, and just very gently thread it through. Now that our packing is firmly set and replaced, this concludes the packing reassembly. The last thing that we have to do today is to replace the trim. As you'll notice, I've gone ahead and replaced the upper diaphragm housing. So the next thing that we need to do is go ahead and add the trim. We'll take the plug and we will thread it onto the stem. So you need to align the drive screw holes. You can see through there. Should be able to see all the way through there and set the drive screw. So we'll take a drive screw, place it in here. Careful not to drive it too far. You may need to take a look. That's about equally positioned. And so now that the plug is firmly fastened to the stem, the last thing that we need to do is put the cage in the housing here, or the body, I mean. So you won't actually seat the cage. When you tighten the hammer nut, that will actually be what seats the cage. So we can set it in here loose, connect it like this. All right. So I'm not gonna actually tighten the hammer nut because I don't have a vise or some way to hold it right here. But you can either use a hammer to tighten it all the way down, or you can use some type of special wrench. You'll most likely be using a hammer. Just be sure to tighten the hammer nut until it fully seats the cage, and you should be able to see that the hammer nut is completely down on the unit and it is firmly fastened. So that concludes the actuator repair, the trim, and the packing replacement. For more information on the 1450 series control valves and to find your local representative, please click the links in this video. And also, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more videos on SOR products. Thanks for joining us today.